Hi, this is the next episode for Evidence for Jesus. So basically, this is going to be a kind of a freehand evidence for Jesus. The last one was more technical. I gave some actual facts, and I want to combine that one with also just my personal beliefs of evidence for Jesus. So the first one is the Dead Sea Scrolls. So the Dead Sea Scrolls were actually discovered when a group of kids, really young men, were hiking, and one of them actually threw a rock into a cave, and expecting to hear nothing, they actually heard some shattering. And so within the cave, they actually went to investigate what that was, and they found a whole bunch of pottery, and they found scrolls within those pottery, and it turns out the rock broke one of those pottery vessels that were holding the scrolls. And so the Marl Caves of Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, near the northwestern shore of the Dead Sea. And I'm actually reading this book from the library, the Essential Bible Guide, Bible background with maps, charts, and lists. I got this from, I'm in Washington, if you're somewhere else watching this, which you most likely are. I got this from just one of the local libraries, and your library may have it. So the Bible, one of my personal beliefs is the Bible was, and I haven't had this one for a while, but the Bible was written by 44 different authors, if I'm not mistaken. The exact number, I think, is about 40 or 44. And they're all from different time periods. So they're all from different places in time, but they're writing collectively about the same God, and the stories align together. So what I'm saying is, Moses, he started the story, but someone 400 years later is starting to write the story with no connection from the old story, really. And the connection really, I mean, what I mean by no connection is they don't know that other person personally. They're taking up their own relationship with God, with Jesus, and writing the story of the Bible and continuing it on for the nation of Israel. And basically, the nation of Israel has spread out. The God of Israel has spread from one corner of the world to all the way over here in America, over years, over time, and so that is one reason of, just the unity of the Bible and the authors that wrote it, but also the separation of them as well. And you get what I'm saying. So, yeah. So let's find, this is kind of a search with me type of video. Let's find another fact. So I like the last video when it said the existence of Bethlehem. So Egypt, Egypt, there are written records of different people that have written about Jesus, and they have no religious connection. And so that's why some of the historians believe that Jesus was real and who he says he is. But Christians believe who he says he is. But Egypt, the existence of Egypt, that goes to prove, one of the first books of the Bible, the groups of books that are written about is from Moses. Moses was the writer of Genesis through Deuteronomy. And I want to look into kind of, the history behind that, and how did Moses write that, and things like that. But basically, Moses delivered the children of Israel out of Egypt, and Egypt is still there today. There's pyramids that are still around, and so to show that God, can talk to someone years ago, and it's still around. The pyramids, it's 2020, and the pyramids are still here today, and those were made so long ago, and so isn't it weird that people still today are kind of like, whoa, how did they make the pyramids without, the advanced technology of today? And so my point is that, it's not bizarre for the Bible to be written way back when and still have, merit today. So I think that is just, a really good point. So let's see. So another evidence, for Jesus is so the interplay of sun and rain in Israel's fertile Hule Basin forms a fitting backdrop for the remains of the Iron Age storehouse at Hazor. Overall, the climate of the Middle East is quite varied. The central part, Egypt, Arabia, Israel, Syria, and southern Mesopotamia, has a subtropical climate with dry summers and rainy winters, as described above. The southern characterized by the southern extremities, however, Ethiopia, Sudan, Yemen, are characterized by a monsoon climate in which the seasons are reversed. The summers are rainy and the winters are dry. So this kind of shows a good picture of this description that I just read. So basically, if you were to go over to Israel today, there are different sites that are still around from Jesus' time on earth. So, for example, they still have the road that Jesus carried the cross up for his crucifixion. And of course, the crucifixion it's kind of like one of those topics that, it's kind of like a death topic, but it was important because Jesus paid for the bad things that we could no longer handle. If you get to a point where you're like, man, I'm dealing with something that is beyond me, and Jesus basically saved us from that. When he told Adam and Eve to not eat that fruit, there was real importance behind it that we in 2020 now know the gravity of that decision. And of course, we've all made that same choice to eat that fruit in a metaphoric way. In my opinion, that may not be exact fact, but as a disclaimer, but we've all sort of, we can't say that we would make a better choice than Adam and Eve. But the purpose of starting this off was that, in Israel today, there are many old things from Jesus's time that are being unearthed or are still around today that definitely give evidence for Jesus and his crucifixion. Again, historians believe that Jesus was crucified, and Yesterday we talked about Jesus, his tomb being discovered. And so let's see if I can find any more cool things in this book. So I'll give an example. So by the time of the New Testament, Greco-Roman culture had taken deep root in the Levant. Cities such as Pella and Transjordan helped to hold Rome's eastern frontier, both militarily and culturally. So the story of the gospel, I definitely recommend, re-listening to the gospel over and over again. The Bible is considered meditation literature. So that's why Christians reread it, because it's literature that is meant to be meditated on and over a lifetime. And it's not like, a regular book where you just kind of read it once and, you get something from it and you put it down. And so this picture shows that today the Gospels had a connection to Rome. The Gospels, Jesus was in a setting where Rome was the military power of the world during that time. And my point is that there's evidence that Rome really existed and was a powerful presence during that time. And why would I mention that? Because how can we believe something that a historian tells us? We're in 2020. We do not know what has happened 50 years ago, except from what people tells us. For example, I'm African American, but if there was not a real presence or word of mouth that African Americans were in slavery, 200 years ago, 100 years ago, I literally would have no idea, because today we've had a president, Barack Obama was elected in 2008, and I have not been in slavery in regards to physical, having a man rule over me. Of course, we've been in spiritual slavery and bondage to sin, but you get my point, that if no one told me, I would not know that African Americans had such a struggle in America. And why should I discredit the Bible? Because of word of mouth, because of what I've heard, I literally would not know until God teaches me, or I come to the knowledge of Christ through the word of God, through the gospel, and through God. So if you desire, even if you don't desire, please give the gospel another look and ask God to reveal Jesus through you and have you live for Jesus. So God bless you. I hope this video helps, and see ya.